Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. I am so glad you're joining us because today we are getting into something that, honestly, it might make you look at your entire life just a little bit differently.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those topics that gets under your skin in the best way possible.
Totally. So we've got some incredible source material to go through today, and our main mission for this deep dive is to explore this really wild concept of how to reclaim the decision-making power in your life.
Right. And breaking free from what the text calls the gaze of others, which is just a fascinating way to phrase it.
It really is. So to set the scene for you, the listener, I want you to imagine that creeping feeling of exhaustion you get at the end of a long week. You know, when you realize you're basically living your life on autopilot.
Mhm.
And you start wondering, who is actually steering the ship here? What if I told you that, according to our source text, something like 90% of the decisions you made today weren't actually your decisions at all?
And that is just a staggering number to confront right out of the gate. 90%.
Right. Like, I'm not just talking about the small stuff, not just the coffee you ordered or the shirt you put on. I mean, the massive structural pillars of your life.
The big ones. Your career, where you live, who you marry.
Exactly. The career path, the city you're in, your friends. What if you looked at all of it and realized you aren't the author of your own story?
Yeah.
You're basically just an actor reading lines from a script that was, I don't know, silently handed to you years ago.
Yeah, and that exhaustion you feel, that existential fatigue when you're just sitting in traffic, it might not just be that you need more sleep.
Right. It's not physical tiredness.
No, it's the invisible toll of constantly tweaking your life to appease this audience you didn't even know was watching you. But I do want to set the tone here because our source material emphasizes that this isn't about making drastic, burn your life down kind of changes.
Oh, thank goodness. Because when you're 90%, you kind of want to panic.
Exactly. You don't need to quit your job today. It's more about subtly shifting how we interpret the resolution of our daily lives, which we'll get into later.
Yeah, the resolution concept is huge. But let's start with that initial shock, the illusion of choice. How are 90% of our choices not our own?
Well, the text argues that the gaze of others just quietly infiltrates everything. And it's not just vanity. It's not like, ooh, I want to look cool for Instagram.
Right, it's deeper than that.
Much deeper. It's a deeply learned behavior. We learn to seek praise and fear disappointment in the very first micro-societies we ever enter, which are our families and our schools.
Like getting a gold star in kindergarten.
Exactly. You get the gold star, the teacher smiles, your parents are proud, your brain gets a dopamine hit. And the text uses a really powerful word for this comfort of being evaluated and recognized. It says it is addictive.
Addictive. Wow. That really tracks, though. I mean, it's like thinking you're this auteur director of your own life's movie, right?
Love that analogy.
Yeah, like you think you're calling all the shots. But in reality, you're just sitting there taking notes from a focus group of literally everyone you know, and you're just constantly frantically tweaking the script so the audience won't be disappointed. You water down your own movie until it's just this generic crowd pleaser.
That is exactly what happens. And the tragic result, as the text points out, is that our pure, unadulterated wishes, what we actually want, might make up less than 10% of our actions.
Less than 10%. That is terrifying.
Mm.
But recognizing that is sort of the mandatory first step to taking your life back, right?
Right. You can't fix a problem if you don't even know you're trapped in it. We call this the evaluation trap. You are so addicted to the comfort of the focus group's approval that you don't even know what your own unadulterated wishes look like anymore.
So once we actually realize our lives are this cramped and dictated by this addiction to approval, what happens? Because I feel like the natural human instinct when you realize you're trapped is just, to run.
Yes, you want to flee. And that leads us directly into how we try to escape this suffocating feeling. The text categorizes 3 highly specific escape routes that people take to avoid their true selves.
Okay, let's get into these because this part of the source text really challenged me. The 3 routes, right? Number 1 is the person who packs a single bag and travels the world to see unseen sights.
The classic geographic escape.
Right. And then number 2 is basically the exact opposite. It's the person who locks themselves in their room and just completely cuts off contact with the outside world.
Physical isolation, yes.
And number 3 is the person who just aggressively packs their schedule. They stay relentlessly busy to eliminate literally any time to stop and think.
Temporal acceleration, keeping the calendar completely full.
Okay, so here's my pushback on this because I read this and I was like, wait a minute. Society usually praises the world traveler,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. They're seen as adventurous.
Right, and the hyper-productive, busy person. We give them promotions and awards. They're crushing it.
Mhm.
But then society fiercely judges the person who locks themselves in their room. We call them shut-ins. So how can the text group these three completely different things together?
I know, it seems completely counterintuitive at first glance. But the profound connection the source makes is that despite looking completely opposite on the outside, the root motive for all three is identical.
Identical how?
They are all defense mechanisms. The underlying driver for the traveler, the shut-in, and the workaholic is a profound fear of facing one's own true feelings.
Oh, wow, so they're all just running away.
Exactly. The traveler uses sensory overload, new cities, new languages, to drown out their internal thoughts. The shut-in uses sensory deprivation to hide from the focus group, but they usually just distract themselves with the internet or games so they don't have to face themselves either.
Right, they just shrink their world, but they're still avoiding the internal work.
Yes. And the busy person, which is probably the most common one in our modern society, they use exhaustion as a shield. If you have zero free time, you have zero time to realize you have no idea who you actually are.
That hits really close to home. The idea that being super busy is actually a trauma response to the fear of stillness.
It is. And the text warns us that by continuing these really clever avoidance strategies, we slowly erode the very opportunities we have to check in with our true intentions. You build a wall to protect yourself, and you end up trapping yourself outside your own life.
But the thing is, no matter how far you travel or how tightly you lock your door or how many meetings you put on your calendar, there's one moment where all these avoidance tactics just completely fail, isn't there?
They always fail eventually. The system can't run on avoidance forever. And that brings us to what the text calls the midnight interrogation.
The midnight interrogation, just the name of it gives me anxiety.
Right. It's that completely universal experience. You're lying in bed at night, alone in the quiet, the distractions are gone, and you're just hit with these sudden, incredibly heavy questions.
Like, what was I born for? Or what am I actually living for?
Exactly. Is this all there is? And the source insists this is not just a phenomenon for people who are, lost or failing at life.
Right. It's not just people going through midlife crisis.
No, even people who appear highly successful on paper, the CEOs, the people with the perfect families, they crash into this exact same question at 2 a.m. because it's the suppressed feelings finally bubbling to the surface in the silence.
Because the focus group is asleep.
Yes, the audience is gone, the task-positive part of your brain powers down, and your true self finally has a chance to raise its hand and say, hey, what are we doing here?
And it is so panic-inducing for you, the listener, when this happens. I know it is for me. My immediate instinct when that existential dread hits is to just grab my phone off the nightstand and scroll until my brain goes numb.
Which is just another micro-escape route.
Totally. Or I try to frantically invent an answer, like, okay, my purpose is to get a promotion next quarter. I just grab whatever society tells me is a good purpose to make the panic stop.
And that is the exact wrong thing to do, according to the text. The critical advice here is to not rush to answer the question.
Wait, really don't answer it.
Do not answer it. Because if you answer it in a state of panic, we're just going to grab another script from the focus group. Instead, the text says you have to hold on to the question.
Hold on to it. Just sit with the dread.
Yes. The act of holding it is a practice in self-confrontation. Rather than running from the question, look at why the question was born in that specific moment. What happened today that made your true self sound the alarm at 2 a.m.?
So you interrogate the question itself. That is wild. But, okay, if we aren't supposed to panic and invent some grand life purpose on the spot, where are we actually supposed to look for clues? Because the text argues we are looking in entirely the wrong places, right?
We absolutely are. We have this huge bias toward believing that life's answers are hidden in massive special events.
Like moving to a new country or, I don't know, a huge career change.
Or weddings or graduations. We think the big macro events define us. But the text completely dismantles this. It argues that the answers are actually quietly hiding in our normal, everyday, seemingly boring lives.
This was my favorite part of the source material. Finding the high definition of daily life. The examples the text gives are just so beautiful.
They really are. What were some of the ones that stood out to you?
Well, it mentions feeling a small, quiet sense of peace, just seeing the morning light hit the kitchen counter, or having a casual, completely unprompted conversation with a stranger, or even just noticing that your body naturally starts moving when a favorite song plays on the radio. or losing track of time because you're captivated by a book.
And see, normally we brush those things off and say, oh, it's just a mood, or I just had a good cup of coffee.
Right, we minimize it because it's not a productive moment.
Exactly. But the text warns us, do not brush these moments off. If you do, you miss the vital signs of your unadorned self. In those tiny moments, the focus group isn't evaluating you. You're just experiencing pure joy.
So we need to actively pause and acknowledge them.
Yes. By acknowledging them, you raise the resolution of your daily life. It's like switching from an old fuzzy TV to 4K definition. You turn the mundane details into a treasure trove of hints about who you really are.
It's turning the boring stuff into high-def clues. I love that. But it's not just about the spontaneous, fleeting moments of joy, is it? The text goes further. It says the answers are also in the things we do on a relentless, repeating loop.
Right. We're moving from the spontaneous to the routine. The truth hidden in repetition.
Habits.
Habits. Because while we try to find our identity in glamorous experiences, a person's true nature actually oozes out in their daily routines.
Oozes out. That's a great visual.
Yeah.
But why habits? Why are the things we do without thinking so important?
Because habits are executed without conscious effort. They lack the performative acting we do for others. When you're running on habit, you aren't calculating the social profit and loss. Therefore, they are the absolute purest domain for your true intentions to surface.
So if you want to know who you are, look at what you do on autopilot. The text gives some really specific metrics for this for the listener to try. It says, look at what you naturally reach for on a day off.
Yes, when the calendar's blank.
Right. And more importantly, look at how you unconsciously choose to spend your time when you are just completely exhausted, like bone tired. Look at the habits you maintain even when absolutely no one is asking you to do them.
That exhaustion test is key, because when you are exhausted, you don't have the energy to maintain the mask for the focus group.
Right. I was thinking about this like mental autopilot. When you finally take your hands off the steering wheel of trying to impress society, what direction does your car naturally drift toward? That drift is your true self.
The drift, yes. And it might be something that seems totally unproductive. Like after a 60-hour work week, maybe your drift is meticulously tending to a little bonsai tree on your porch. Or maybe it's organizing your spice rack.
Or falling down a Wikipedia rabbit hole about, like, 18th century maritime law.
Exactly. Whatever that drift is, it reveals a core value that exists outside of societal evaluation. But to truly understand the value of that kind of action without the pressure of an audience, the text suggests we have to time travel a bit.
Oh, this is the childhood section.
Yeah.
Going back to before we learned the addiction to evaluation.
Right. The era of zero-profit curiosity. The source advises looking back at your childhood obsessions, the things you did where you completely lost track of time.
The text provides these amazing specific profiles for this. It mentions the child who is utterly absorbed in drawing. Not drawing to show it to mom, but just drawing to draw.
Yes.
Or the child obsessed with observing living creatures, like sitting in the dirt looking at bugs for hours. Or the child who just found pure joy in talking to others, just chattering away to anyone who would listen.
And what do all of those have in common? The motivation is 100% pure curiosity. They are completely devoid of any profit and loss calculations.
There's no ROI on looking at a beetle.
None. And it's entirely free from external evaluation. You just did it because you loved the heat of the experience.
Okay, so this brings up a huge pragmatic question for the listener, and I have to ask it on their behalf. If I loved looking at bugs as a kid, and I had that pure zero-profit curiosity, does this text mean I'm supposed to quit my corporate logistics job today and become an entomologist?
I am so glad you asked that, because that is where everyone gets stuck. And the text is very explicit about this. The answer is no. You absolutely do not need to force a literal connection between your childhood hobby and your adult career.
Phew. Okay, that's a relief.
Yeah, you don't have to blow up your life. The crucial takeaway here isn't the activity itself, it's the quality of the feeling. It's the pure heat of that passion. The text asks you to compare that childhood heat to how you engage with things now as an adult.
So you're comparing the temperatures, basically.
Exactly. And the gap between those two temperatures, the childhood heat versus the lukewarm, calculated adult reality, that gap is where your true self is waiting to be reclaimed.
Okay, so if we aren't supposed to radically change careers to match our childhood hobbies, how exactly do we bridge this gap in our modern, super busy lives? How do we bring that heat back?
The goal is integration, not perfect replication. You don't go back to being a child. The text urges us to take small fragments of those childhood feelings and deliberately scatter them throughout our current daily lives.
Reclaiming the margins of adulthood.
Exactly, reclaiming the margins.
The text gives exact blueprints for this, which I found so helpful. It says, if you loved drawing as a kid, take time on a weekend just to doodle a simple illustration in your planner. Don't try to sell it, just doodle. And if you loved observing creatures, just take a walk in a nearby park and consciously look at the changing of the seasons. Just watch a squirrel for 10 minutes.
But as adults, we struggle with this so much. The psychological barrier is massive.
Because we need everything to be efficient.
Yes. We are plagued by the need for efficiency and results. Spending 10 minutes watching a squirrel yields zero tangible profit. To the adult capitalist brain, it feels like an unjustifiable luxury. It feels like a waste of time.
Like, if I'm walking, I should be listening to a podcast on 1.5 speed to optimize my growth.
Right, we commodify everything. But the psychological benefit outlined in the text is that doing these completely profitless activities creates essential margins, or white space, in our hearts.
I think about it like the margins of a printed book. If the text went all the way to the absolute edge of the paper, it would be unreadable. You'd just be overwhelmed. You need the blank white margins to give the page structure so you can actually read the words.
That's a brilliant way to look at it. The busy work is the text. And the doodling, the squirrel watching, the foot tapping, those are your margins. And reclaiming that feeling brings back a forgotten brightness to the mind.
It's like a micro-rebellion against the focus group.
Exactly. And by consciously integrating these small, joyful, profitless acts, we actually begin to build a brand new tool to measure our lives against. Which brings us to forging your own yardstick.
The yardstick.
Yeah.
Because the text admits a really hard truth here, doesn't it? It says that completely freeing yourself from the gaze of others is basically impossible.
It is incredibly difficult. We are social creatures. We will always care a little bit about what people think. You can't just turn that off. However, what you can do is create a secondary yardstick, a metric of measurement within yourself.
But this new yardstick, at least at first, is super fragile.
Oh, very fragile. The text warns that if you maintain a habit of comparing yourself to others, like scrolling social media and looking at everyone's highlight reels, this internal yardstick will just wobble and fail. The external wind will snap it.
So how do we strengthen it? How do we use it in a daily practice so it actually holds up?
The practical application on the text is about how you review your day. At the end of today, when you look back, the default habit is to ask, did I produce enough today? Did someone praise me? Did I get a gold star?
Right. We use the society yardstick.
Exactly. So you have to consciously change the question. Instead, ask, was there a moment today where I felt personally fulfilled?
Even a tiny moment.
Even a 10-second moment. Did I enjoy my coffee without looking at my email? Did I doodle in the margins and feel a spark of joy?
And the takeaway here is so liberating. You don't need to make massive, sweeping life changes. By simply increasing the frequency with which you use your own yardstick over society's yardstick, your path toward genuine happiness and success will naturally shift.
It's the compounding interest of those micro adjustments. The drift slowly changes your destination.
It's just incredible. Let's recap the journey of this deep dive, because we've covered so much ground. We started by recognizing the trap of society's gaze and that 90% statistic.
The evaluation trap.
Right. And then we understood our varied escape routes, the traveler, the shut-in, the overly busy person. We talked about surviving the midnight existential crisis at 2 a.m. by just holding on to the question instead of panicking.
Finding the high-resolution clues in the mundane things.
Yes. The morning light, the autopilot habits when we were exhausted.
Yeah.
And then channeling that zero profit, pure curiosity of our childhood to build a personal yardstick for fulfillment. It all weaves together so perfectly.
It really is a comprehensive framework for reclaiming your autonomy. But before we sign off, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought to mull over.
Oh, I love these. Lay it on us.
This builds directly on the text premise about our true nature being hidden in our habits and our unprompted actions. So if our unadorned true selves are revealed in what we unconsciously reach for when no one is asking, take a look at your physical environment right now.
Like the actual room they are in.
Yes. Look around. What do the totally unnecessary, profitless objects you keep on your desk, or say the arrangement of the apps on your phone's home screen, What do they reveal about the person you are secretly trying to become when the rest of the world isn't watching?
Oh,
What
wow.
is that little figurine on your desk saying about your unadulterated wishes? Which app do you put front and center that has nothing to do with productivity?
Wait, really? Just the random stuff we keep around, eh?
Exactly. It's your drift, made physical.
That is going to keep me thinking for days. I am literally looking at my desk right now, reevaluating all my knickknacks. Thank you so much to everyone for joining this deep dive. We really encourage you to look for those tiny, high-resolution moments in your day-to-day. Check your desk, check your phone, and start building that internal yardstick. Catch you next time.